which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Bering?
Here. Item D, approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Lindemann. Second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Item E, summary of current events. Superintendent Samaniego.
Good evening, board members and members of the community and staff. Just a few things. I wanted to inform the board that our curriculum department has been working on gathering information for submitting an application to the ADE for an AOI school. And what that is, it's Arizona approved online school for 9 to 12 grade. They have to submit the application. If approved by ADE, I will then bring it to the board for approval, and that would offer 9th through 12th grade an online opportunity for school year 22-23. Okay, not for this school year, but it has to be submitted in October. So just wanted to inform you. Fall break starts Monday, so that's October 11th through the 15th. All schools are closed. Administrators are on vacation, and so are students and teachers. District office will remain open. 2021. D-Week dedicatee, we're very glad to inform that Mr. Bosco Selchow has been voted to be D-Week dedicatee for this year's homecoming game. So congratulations to Mr. Bosco Selchow. Schools are fully implementing all mitigation COVID plans, to the best of our ability, from social distancing in classrooms, that's probably the most difficult part to do. This week that masks were optional. Most of the principals said most of their staff continue to wear, most students continue to wear masks. They are staggering lunches, seating charts. Cohorts of students they're trying to maintain cohorts of students as best as possible instead of interchanging classrooms as best they can. Of course, Douglas High School and middle school is a little bit more complicated because they rotate, different teachers. So we're ongoing with our mitigation and our sanitizing as best as we can. And last but not least, report cards will be going out the week after fall break. So students will be receiving those report cards that week. And that is all.
Okay, very good. And again, congratulations to Mr. Salchow. Well deserving. Do we have any reports by the governing board, Mr. Lindemann?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to report that I attended the law conference in September along with Mr. Ramos and Ms. Selchow, and also represented the DUSD as a delegate at the Delegate Assembly.
Very good. Any other board members? Dr. Gomez.
This is more of a personal nature. I just had a great September. On or about Labor Day, my son was tested positive for COVID. He went into the hospital, was there for a week, just on oxygen. Got released, spent a week at home, and now he's back to work. So I'm really thankful for that. The second thing is that being a deacon, I was able to marry my granddaughter and her husband, and that was very nice. And then on the 27th of September, I became a great-grandfather. Thank you very much for letting me brag.
What granddaughter did you marry? Whose child is that?
It's Michelle's, and her name is Alexandra.
Very good. Very good. I taught Michelle in school.
Yes, you did.
I told you.
Do we have any other board reports? How about the high school?
Camilla has the CNA class, and she may be running late, so if she walks in, if we can
Fine.
maybe,
Just let me know when she gets here.
and then she needs to leave
we'll do that.
immediately after that.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Randall.
I don't know if this is common knowledge, but Maria Moreno passed away, one of our, Sarah Marley, and so if we could have just a moment of silence.
Certainly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got some restructuring to do with the agenda, and as always, I think the board or any public entity should always have whatever is a major public interest item at the beginning of the agenda so that they don't have to, the public doesn't have to wait through a whole agenda to get to it. And in doing so, we're going to move two items. We're going to move the mask mandate up. But before we do that, we have to do some restructuring of some advisories that we have from ASBA regarding some of our policies. And the first one is that we need to do item P, which is discussion action pursuant to policy BGF to temporarily suspend BGB, requiring two readings of the proposed policies prior to approval of the adoption in order to approve the following policy advisories immediately upon the first reading. And so we'll only do one of those, and the one that we'll do, because it's the one that's pertinent to, and specifically to the mask mandate, is policy advisory number 687, and that's the one that deals with staff, personnel, security, and safety. So if you, I'll give you a minute to look at the policy advisories. They're item P, and it's 687. And do you want to give the specific language, Ms. Elman?
Yes.
The change there?
So policy GBGB-R, when we brought this forth to you last month, it did stipulate, it had the language, cloth face coverings, COVID-19 vaccine. As stipulated in ARS 15342-.05, a school district or charter may not require a student or a teacher to receive a vaccine for COVID-19 or to wear a face covering to participate in in-person instruction. So that one said may not have a mask mandate. The new changes on this is it's striking out that language to remove it in entirety of what I just read.
Okay, so in order to do item P, O, the mask mandate, we need to adopt this first so that we change the policy so that when we enact, if the board decides to go one way or the other, when we enact whatever the board decides, we're within the authority and proper purview of that policy. So I'll entertain a motion to approve specifically that one item on the advisories, and then when we get to P again, then we will adopt the rest of them. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt policy advisory number 687.
Mr. President,
Yes.
it's policy advisory number 712.
712.
Oh, it's 712?
712.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was 6. Oh, that's the other one.
That
That's
was the old one.
Yeah, that's the old one. All right. So it'll be, thank you for that. That's 712. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Okay,
Yeah,
well-
Dr. Gomez, discussion.
Explain to me again. So it has to do with the ruling that was done, right? And so then the new advisory or the new thing that came from ASBA, what is the difference?
What happened was, the legislature in the House bill issued the mandate that school districts couldn't mandate immunizations or masks in order, and we have that in our policy, but in order to effectively address the item of the mask mandate now so that we're open to do whatever the board decides, we have to change the policy to say now that we can mandate it, and that's what that 712 does.
Okay.
Okay, so any further discussion by the board? Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, now we're on item O.
Yes.
And that item is discussion action on the reaffirmation of the Douglas Unified School District number 27 mask mandate. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes. So obviously, I've informed you and
Wait,
we've...
excuse me, hold on a minute. We're
have
going
some
to
time.
hold the discussion on addressing the board, just so everybody knows, those people that signed up to address the board, it would be more appropriate to do it on that item before the board makes a motion and has discussion, and it would be more timely. So we're going to go through this now, and then we'll allow anybody that signed up to address the board to do so at that time. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't-
So, as Dr. Gomez mentioned, there was a court ruling done, I think it was either last week or a week before, and which stipulated that it was unconstitutional to, under that House bill, that schools could no longer impose a mandate of masks. And so now, with that ruling, school districts are having to make a decision whether to continue what we have done for the last week, which is masks are optional, or to continue with the mask mandate, which under that court ruling, we would be allowed to do so and we would not be violating any law. And of course, masks have definitely been something very controversial for school districts. It's not only here in Douglas, but across the nation. And you have parents wanting masks and mandating that we enforce masks, and you have parents that are against it and want choice. So the mask mandate doesn't allow for choice, as we know. Everybody's expected to wear a mask, teachers and staff, while indoors. If the board were to go with an optional mask mandate, then we would strongly encourage masks, especially for our elementary grades, or anybody that's not vaccinated. And so today, I needed to bring that to you because last mandate and motion that you made, it just said up until the 28th of September.
Okay. Before we get to call to the public for specifically that item, members of the board, do you have any questions or comments from that statement made by the superintendent? Mr. Lindeman.
Is this the time for discussion?
No, we're not, just any reaction, just quick
Oh, okay.
to that. You want to wait for the discussion?
Yes,
to be more
I'll wait, thank you.
Okay, now we're called to the public, and we're going to let the people that are present
First.
go first. And the first one we have would be the one addressing the mask issue, and the one that the board will be addressing momentarily. And that's reaffirming of mask mandate, and that's Darlene Melk, I think. Is that?
Dr. Milk.
Oh, doctor. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, good evening, Superintendent Samaniego and President Brain and members of the board. My name is Darlene Melk, and I'm here tonight to comment on the reaffirmation of mask mandate. I'm here as a parent of two elementary school age children, a kindergartner and a third grader in the district, but I'm also here as a pediatrician who served the community for 11 years. And I have 5 points briefly that I wanted to share with the board. So point number one, sadly, COVID is not over. To date, we've had 77,556 hospitalizations in the state of Arizona. Just under 3,000 of them were under the age of 20. As we know, mostly affects our senior members, but does definitely affect our children. And just last week, we had levels of transmission positivity rates of about 9% of all the tests that are being done are coming back positive. So we're definitely in a high transmission state. The second point is COVID-19 vaccines actually save lives. We now have good evidence that it doesn't prevent infection, but does help prevent severe illness and hospitalization, which is the goal, honestly, to get this pandemic under control. The vaccines, quite honestly, as a pediatrician, I've really appreciated how much they have saved lives over the years. I've never seen a case of polio, for example. And we, are given the opportunity to prepare our immune systems to fight off really, lethal infections with these vaccines. Point number 3 is the COVID-19 vaccine for school-age children, ages 5 to 12, is just around the corner. The FDA's advisory panel is going to be convening on October the 26th to look at the data for the safety and efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine for children 5 to 12. Many experts are saying that this is going to be very crucial for helping us get out of this pandemic. My fourth point is that masks are effective at reducing transmission. Again, nothing is perfect. This is all about mitigating and decreasing risk. So some recent studies based on school openings this year showed that those schools who had uniform mask mandates had about half the rate of transmission than those who did not. So we do know that they do work. They're not perfect, but they do work. And then my last point is not anything related to data. It's just my personal feelings about our community. I moved to Douglas in 2012 and never will forget what somebody told me. A gentleman who's lived in Cochise County for years, he said, Douglas is one of the last true communities that I've ever seen. I truly see this on a daily basis as a pediatrician. Our children are being cared for by a village. It's family members, aunts, uncles. It's not just the parents. And we all know how important nanas and tatas and all of our family are. So we want to do the right thing, not just for the children, but we're doing it for the community and for those that we love. And I truly believe that children look to us as adults to make these kind of decisions and to show them sort of what is important to us as a sign of respect. So I want to take this thing off as much as you all do, and I can't stand wearing it. But we wear them and we get vaccinated sometimes to protect not just ourselves, but to protect those who we love. And so in summary, there is light at the end, I think, of this long tunnel, and I appreciate the very difficult decision that you all have to make this evening to vote, but I'd urge you each to think about these statistics that I've shared, and thank you very much for the service that you've provided during this historical time in our lives, and for allowing me to share my thoughts with you tonight. Thank you.
Doctor,
Oh.
can I ask you a question?
You know what,
Do I take questions?
let's do it under discussion
Okay.
when we get there, and then if she stays, and I hope she does, then you can ask her then.
Okay.
Then we'll have interaction.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is Mr. Jesus Duarte.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bahrain, Ms. Amaniego, and the rest of the board. And I'm here to speak against forceful masking of our children, and also hoping that we're still protected under the Parents' Bill of Rights, which was enacted by the 49th Arizona Legislature, and that's Arizona Revised Statute 1-601, which is the liberty of parents to direct the upbringing, education, health care, and mental health of their children as a fundamental right. DUSD has yet to demonstrate the compelling evidence for masking up our children. COVID is less of a threat to children than accidents and the common flu. The survival rate among American children with confirmed cases is approximately 99.99% of it. The Center for Disease Control estimated that mask mandates in schools are associated with roughly about 20% reduction in COVID cases through their effectiveness. So given that, and we just heard that there's about 3,000 cases of it in Arizona for the pediatrics, that would mean that about 600 of these cases would have been prevented, only 600 of them. And that would amount, and any death that we can get from it, stop from it is great, but that would only amount to 0.06% of a death that we would have saved with this. The long-term harm to kids for masking is potentially enormous. Masking is a psychological stressor for children and disrupts learning. Covering the lower half of the face of both teachers and pupils reduces the ability to communicate. In particular, children lose the experience of mimicking expressions, an essential tool of nonverbal communication. Positive emotions, negative emotions, and Positive emotions such as laughing and smiling becomes less recognizable, and negative emotions get amplified. Bonding between teachers and students take a hit. Overall, it is likely that masking exacerbates the chance that a child will experience anxiety and depression, which are already at pandemic levels. I remember being an elementary school teacher teaching first, second grade, and having those kids walk into your classroom, hug your legs, and then show you a big smile when they lost their tooth and showing it. How many times, how many incidents are we missing of that with our kids? And we're just looking at the primary people that we want to mask are elementary school kids. It is not right that for the safety of the adults, we're putting this onus on the kids. The kids are not the ones that are transmitting it. Knowing that our staffs have the ability to be vaccinated and have had that opportunity, they should be safe. They should be embracing the smiles on the faces of our kids and not be afraid and put such a pressure on our kids for them to keep us adults as safe. We should be keeping them safe on that and let them enjoy their childhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have is Dora Cortez.
Good afternoon, board members. I am not an anti-masker, but I am pro-choice. I have a student at Rayburn Middle School. She is 13 years old, and she has a terrible rash on her face because of wearing the mask. She is a volleyball player, and they told her, no mask, no play. Have any of you board members ever worn a mask during physical activity? Well, she feels lightheaded. However, I see that as very illogical because we have our football players at the high school where they have more physical contact and they don't wear a mask. So all this mask issues is really complicated, and the COVID too. Everything's a hot mess. Nobody knows what they're doing. And the reason I'm saying this is because on August 26th, I received a call from the school that I had to go pick up my daughter because she had been exposed to COVID. We went and picked her up. I was supposed to get a call from the health department, which I never did, so I called them myself. They wanted my daughter to be quarantined for 10 days because she had been exposed, just my daughter and another student, when the person who was actually sick with COVID had been at school all day, had gone through all her classes, plus volleyball practice, but it was just two students that were being sent home to be quarantined. I asked if my husband and I had to be quarantined to not go to work because my daughter had been exposed, and they said no. The health department said no, that we could go to work. So we got around to, I finally told him what was the point of me getting my daughter vaccinated, and he told me, oh, your daughter is vaccinated? Then go ahead and send her back to school. She doesn't need to be quarantined. However, she can still get COVID, but she doesn't need to be quarantined. So it's very complicated. Nobody knows what they're doing, but I do believe that the masks are affecting our children. My daughter tells me that she feels lightheaded sometimes. And while she's an 8th grader, she's a teen. Now that she doesn't have to wear the mask, she doesn't want to take it off because of her face. She has a rash from one side to the other. And as long as she continues to wear that, they had picture day yesterday, and she didn't want to take her mask off for that. Because yes, it is a terrible rash. So I hope you guys take that into consideration too. I am not anti-mask, I am pro-choice. I believe that I should have the right that if I want my daughter not to wear a mask, you shouldn't have to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we have some that came in
Yes.
via the website. So Anna, Ms. Samaniego,
Yes.
please read those.
I have one from Mr. Moen. You'd request to speak?
Thank you very much. I've come before you today to voice my opposition to the possible re-implementation of the mask mandate. I know there have been many emotions on both sides of this argument. We're all trying to do what we believe is best for our children, and I would never admonish anyone for wanting to do what's best. That being said, I'm concerned that facts are being pushed to the side for the sake of emotions, and I'm hoping I can bring some facts back into light. First is the issue of masks efficiency. The argument has been made many times that masks prevent the spread of COVID-19 and that masks save lives. I'm not going to dispute these statements. However, I would like to point out the second part of the statement is what's called a casual fallacy. It relies on the premise that since masks slow the spread, they must save lives. The first part of the statement is true to an extent. Masks do limit the spread based on the type of mask used. We've been told many times that masks have been studied, masks slow the spread. However, every study that has been released has had flaws or does not include all data that may have altered the results, i.e. hand washing, physical distancing, comorbidities, or vaccination status. The studies that has been in the news recently is the one that came from our own state, Pima and Maricopa County. They compiled a list of 999 schools in this study that show that masks slow the spread. However, they left out a pretty big part of the study, in my opinion. 808 schools involved in the study had no outbreak, masks or otherwise. And I have both of these studies with me from CDC's own website, and the other one I'm going to talk about next. Also in these studies are, in my opinion, flawed because the data does not show which schools are involved in these outbreaks. Were these schools that had an outbreak K through 6 only? Were they 6 through 12? What was the option of being vaccinated? Was social distancing, hand washing, and ventilation recommendations also followed? This is why most studies on masks are a best guess, in my opinion. The best study so far to date that I've found has been the Bangladesh study. The Bangladesh study used 300 villages, 600,000 participants over 8 weeks, using incentives such as behavior nudges and what is now being referred to as the norm model, no-cost mass distribution, offering information, reinforcement in person and in public settings, and modeling and endorsements. This study showed that cloth masks, which the majority of our students are wearing, had only a 5% reduction in symptoms. However, surgical masks did show a 12% reduction. So this brings up, is the mask you're wearing even helping? If we are going to implement a mask mandate, are we going to implement strictly N95 or surgical masks? Second is the issue of the mask mandate itself. As I said to this board approximately 1 year ago in an email, the implementation of a mandate forces 100% of parents to do what 50% of parents want. We all know that's a 50-50 split for the most part on every survey that has come out. The implementation of a policy by force against our own body, choice, and freedom is never popular, especially one that has yet to be proven. The not wearing of masks should be a choice left up to an individual or family and should not be thrust upon them by other persons, just as the wearing of a mask should not be a decision that is mocked or laughed at. The choice is entirely personal, and it is my hope that every parent is making the decisions based on their own beliefs and not by any outside influence. We also have to consider the vaccination angle. Cochise County and DUSD have high vaccination rates through our own studies and through the websites of ADHS. The majority of people in our area and in our school have chosen to get the vaccine. The protection afforded by this vaccination is well documented and shows very little risks. I'm not saying there's no risks, just that it's been documented as low, especially with the incoming boosters and with the possible 5 to 11 vaccinations. Again, this is a personal choice that should not be forced. With data having been submitted for 5 to 11-year-olds approximately 6 days ago by Pfizer, as Dr. Milk mentioned, we could be looking at a vaccine for all school-age children mid to late October, possibly early November. If this were to happen, would we continue mask mandates for all regardless of vaccination status as we are doing now? Why are we continuing this mask mandate for middle school and high school even though the majority of them have taken the vaccine? The data that has been submitted and evaluated shows masks are only effective when combined with multiple other mitigation strategies. If we're not going to improve ventilation and not do 3 to 6 feet apart, what does masking really do? Is this all we are looking for as a placebo to make us feel better? As I leave here today, I want to remind you that masking is a personal decision that should be between a family and their children and their loved ones. Remember, 50% approved mandate is not preferable to 100% options for all parents. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We don't have anybody else in the audience. Go ahead.
No, not in person. I have two public comments to read. Good morning, Douglas Unified School Board, Superintendent Samaniego. My name is Jessamine Snyder, and I'm the parent of a pre-K student at Sarah Marley Elementary School. First and foremost, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the important work that you do, but especially during the past 2 years. As a former K-12 educator myself, I cannot fathom the challenge experienced over the past almost 2 years, and I am eternally grateful to our teachers, school staff, support staff, school board, superintendent's office, administrators, and everyone who does the important work involved in educating our children. I am grateful to live in our community where, having worked at Douglas Unified, I know the heart and soul that our district employees put into the work they do every day. I am grateful that my daughter has the opportunity to attend in person a quality preschool program at Sarah Marley with Miss Elisa Vasquez. I hope that she is able to safely complete this preschool program, this school cycle, with minimal disruption that may take the form of school closure or transition to hybrid learning. I am writing to humbly offer some information regarding the mask policy that is up for consideration at the October 5th meeting. I just participated in a webinar put on by Arizona COVID Hort CATS research team that included experts from University of Arizona, ASU, Pima County Health, and Maricopa County Department of Public Health. It was an excellent webinar, and the research team had graciously shared the link to a recording for the webinar, which I will share. The first 20-30 minutes of the webinar were especially applicable to parents, community members with children under 18 in schools. My takeaways from the webinar are: the 2020 school year cycle saw a significant increase in mental health calls to health care providers for children, which experts are attributing to the many difficulties and disruptions that children experience due to the ongoing pandemic. This data underscores the need for access to education and the many services schools provide. Data collected by the research team indicates that mitigation measures such as mask work. All breakthrough cases, according to the research, were Delta variant cases. Data compiled by the research team compared to the percentage of schools outbreaks across schools and found that all of the outbreaks, 8% were in schools with early mask mandates, 32% in schools with late mask mandates, meaning mandates that went into effect after school started and that were usually implemented in response to an outbreak. And 60% of outbreaks were at schools with no mask mandate. Special needs students are at an increased vulnerability both for health complications and behavioral, social, emotional difficulties. Outdoor settings and activities have low rates of transmission of the virus. I am proud of the community here in Douglas, and especially of our Douglas Unified School District, that has taken the safety of our children so seriously during the pandemic. I am proud that our students have made the safety and health of our community a priority and have shown true patriotism in protecting our fellow citizens by making mask wearing and hand washing part of a routine of going to school. I hope the board and our community will take into account the information offered by experts in the field and continue to require masks in our school facilities so that our students may safely continue to go to school, so that our schools are more likely to stay open and have an opportunity to provide the services that are crucial to the development of our children and our future. I thank you for your time and your service. Good morning. To Douglas Unified Governing Board. My name is Joni Duarte. I am a parent of 4 DUSD students, past and present. I am also a teacher of DUSD who is honored to get to work with the youngest students of our district. I love early childhood education, I love my job, and I love my students. I am a believer in masks being kept optional, where parents can choose what is the best interest of their own child rather than a school board deciding for everyone. I understand that people are worried about COVID, but attend almost any other event in town or in other nearby towns for that matter, and you will see families gathering without mask. Ironic to me is that people believe it is fine for no mask out of school, but in school, where so much of a child's development relies on facial expressions, development of language, and building relationships, we all need to be masked up. In my opinion, it is depressing to think that the 3-year-old students I have this year may go through their entire first 5 formative years of development masked up in school. While wearing masks at school, they will not have as rich of an experience studying and understanding facial expression, developing language, building relationships among peers. Because of this, they have the likelihood of having deficits in their social, emotional development. There is so much research to show how social emotional development directly relates to a child's future success. When will we consider that maybe wearing masks all day long at school is actually doing some long-term emotional damage? I believe parents, educators, and administrators need to really take a close look at what side effects of wearing masks all day, every day in a classroom can be. I can tell you that daily in my classroom, my IAs and I are not able to hear students talking to us, some students talking to us from behind their mask. I have many young students who are still developing their speech and trying to learn how to articulate words, which is done by seeing someone's mouth and modeling after them. This is a part of my job that cannot be done with masks. Between masks, safety table partitions, social distancing, students are having a harder time developing conversation skills as well. This is currently affecting our young children. After school, I tutor kinder students who are still struggling to identify letter names and produce letter sounds. Just today, I went back and forth multiple times trying to work with the boy who could not repeat letter sounds when I was modeling for him. He kept repeating me the wrong letter sound. We were sitting right next to each other because he could not see my mouth or hear me well enough. He was practicing wrong. All we know what happens, and we all know what happens when we practice wrong. Sadly, I am concerned that what I am sharing with you in this letter won't make a difference in your voting today. Today's decision feels like it will be long-term, like it will turn into something we will just have to live with, always having to wear masks at school. Please keep in mind that you have the chance today for your decision to allow options for people. For those who want to send their children to school in masks, they have that right. And for those who do not, they also have that right. I have had fellow DUSD staff members and parents of my students come to me and share their opinions that masks should be optional. For the record, we are thoroughly sanitizing all toys, materials after every session, hand washing many times throughout the day, using plastic partitions, and after coughs and sneezes, washing hands again. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you how I feel. And that's the last one.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay, we want to thank everybody, especially those people that were here today. And when we get to that item, which will be momentarily, the people that address the board, if the board has any questions of them or wants to interact with them regarding anything that they may have said, as Dr. Gomez did, we'll allow that. So thank you again, and the board appreciates all those comments. This is a tough issue, and in deliberation, I think all of those things are always taken into consideration. All right, we're going to go back to the high school report now. And Kamala, you go ahead and make your report. And we still haven't fixed that over there.
Well-
You want to pull that all the way down the microphone so we, the mic, just pull it down so we can add it. Yeah, okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Samaniego, and members of the public. The activity report at DHS and DUSD schools for the month of October is as follows. We are happy to announce that the pick is now home where it belongs. Congratulations to the football team with a win over the Bisbee Pumas. Go Bulldogs. History was made at 49er Golf Course as our very own Colton Boone shot a hole-in-one on the 8th hole. Overall, our golf team has won 5 matches this year and close out their season at the Flowing Wells Golf Tournament October 8th and 9th. Our FBLA members have been hard at work. They have volunteered their time with the Douglas Business Network in the Douglas Cares Kids Festival, in which they participated in a winter clothing drive for underprivileged children. In our district, report cards and parent conferences, if needed, will be the week of October 18th through October 22nd. Red Ribbon Week festivities will be at various schools at the end of October. At DHS, SAT testing is October 2nd. FFA Community Cleanup is October 4th. PTSO/EL Parent Meeting is October 7th. Fall break is October 11th through October 15th. DHS athletes will visit elementary schools October 19th. Homecoming is October 18th through October 22nd. And SAFT testing is October 25th through October 29th. At Ray Bahrain, there will be a National Junior Honor Society member induction sometime in October. The date is to be determined. Drama Club has begun and students are working on props, rehearsing lines for their production of Coraline. At Clawson, Go Team Therapy dogs visited our school on September 30th. A total of 6 dogs were able to make the trip. The staff and students were thoroughly excited and appreciative of their visit. The school has begun decorating for Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. We will hold our annual Dia de los Muertos event on November 2nd, 2021. At Joe Carlson, in October, they will have a scholastic book fair the week after fall break from October 18th through the 22nd, which will allow families to visit the fair during parent-teacher conferences. Fall Picture Day will be on October 27th. At Sarah Marley, they will be celebrating Red Ribbon Week with a series of Spirit Days. We will also have a series of guest speakers come to speak to the students about the importance of staying drug-free. At Ferris, the NED show presented their show Never Give Up, Try Your Best to all grade levels at Ferris. Jesus Duarte from Cochise County Health Department presented vaping for parents at the Ferris PTSO meeting. At Stevenson, the Fall Book Fair will be October 4th through the 8th. Trunk or Treat and Halloween Door Contest will be October 28th. And Student Council will nominate and vote for 2021 through 2022 officers on October 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. We got a new dimension on that report. You're also reporting for all the schools now? Are you working in collaboration with the principals?
I believe Ms. Rodriguez is, yes.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea.
Because she was reporting only on Douglas High School, and that was actually Mrs. Rodriguez's idea, so we're getting information.
Yeah,
from the
that
schools.
was a good idea, and that was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're now on item O, and that's discussion action on the reaffirmation of the Douglas Unified School District mask mandate. And to get that on the floor for discussion, can I have a motion, Mr. Lindeman?
I move that we approve the DUSD mask mandate for the schools.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ramos for discussion. Members of the board, would you prefer to just take up from where Ms. Samaniego left off, or would you want more information from her administratively, or would you want to just open up your discussion now?
I just had a question.
Look, why don't you go ahead and do that, and then if you can fill in if there's anything you feel, okay?
And then I have some
Go-
other
go
things.
ahead.
But one of the questions is the number of vaccinated adults, Anna, what was the percentage again for our district?
Mrs. Cox?
It was high. It was roughly about 90-95%.
Okay, so we've increased there. Do we know vaccination reports or numbers for our students who are 12 or older? So we don't know that?
No.
Okay. All right, that was my question for you guys.
Members of the board, Dr. Gomez, you
Yes.
wanted-
Dr. Milk, if you could come up to the podium, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Very simple. You're not on the spot. To the best of your knowledge, what is the infection number or rate in Cochise County?
So the last data that we have is over the last week, it's about 9% of all tests that are being done. So 1 out of 10 individuals that are being tested are
Okay.
coming up positive.
And these are just positive tests?
Exactly.
Not necessarily that they're sick or that they're in the hospital or anything, just that that's the positive rate is 9%. Okay.
Exactly.
And then the other thing is, on the vaccine for the younger kids, for like from 5 to 11,
Yes.
when do you expect that to be ready?
Yeah, and Mr. Monasso talked about this, so it's pretty exciting. I mean, honestly, I think this is going to be the game changer, and we were starting to see reduced rates of transmission of the infection, and at least at our organization, we had started to relax mask wearing in administrative spaces based on the rate of transmission. That's kind of the foundation, correct? So, so the vaccine, if it's approved, it's going before the advisory council on the 26th of this month. It still has to go through further CDC approval and then get promoted and then, rolled out. There's, from what I hear, plenty of supply. the children at that age group require a third of the dose of the adult dose. It is 2 doses, the Pfizer. It would just be 3 weeks apart. So I know I was actually kind of doing the calculation this morning when I was preparing my remarks, and I thought, gosh, optimistically speaking, could we get like a bulk of children vaccinated, by the end of the year? Boy, that would just be wonderful, because I think we would be in a very different situation.
And Pfizer's the only one that's going to have the child vaccine?
No, they're all doing trials, but Pfizer is the most advanced, has the
Okay.
most data.
All right, thank you.
There might be, if you don't mind, Doctor. Any other members of the board, any questions for the doctor? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to
Oh, and I want to thank you for coming.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for coming also, and I wanted to just reiterate my comments of last time, that I really feel that we should have a vaccine-a-palooza here, and that would really be helpful. And of course, when the younger kids get approved, then of course, so much the better. But that was my comment for you, Dr. Milk. Thank you.
okay. We'll take that
I have a
back.
question. So, Dr. Milk, in the cases that you've seen, and you have seen local cases of COVID in children,
Of course.
okay? Do you know if any of the COVID cases were, there was transmission while wearing masks?
So that's difficult to kind of pinpoint, but because many children have been wearing
Right.
masks somewhat, yeah, it's definitely possible that it happened with the mask on.
Okay.
As I said earlier, it's not a way to stop the transmission, it's a way to mitigate. So obviously if a child sneezes or coughs, it's not going to forcefully
Right.
come out and cover the surfaces. So, and you can just imagine indoors. So the CDC recommendation right now is only about indoors. So just to reiterate that, children that are outside playing in the outdoors in the open air, it's not the current recommendation that they wear a mask.
Yes.
It's mostly indoors in enclosed spaces where they're more likely to breathe each other's air and kind of the surfaces be contaminated. So
Okay.
that's
Thank you.
basically it. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, does the administration have any questions for the doctor? Thank you very much for being here. And I have just a quick, if and when the vaccine is approved for school children, you've already on the premises and in the schools, will you be offering those shots for school-age children at the school sites, or have you thought that far ahead?
So unfortunately, we are not at the elementary schools. We're at the high school on our mobile clinic, where most of those students who wanted to be vaccinated have had access for months now at our clinic. We have walk-in clinics Monday through Saturday here in Douglas that make it accessible to families, so that, and we're open to the community at large. In Bisbee, we have an infectious disease program site. So anyone, regardless of whether they're a patient or not, can be vaccinated at that site Monday through Friday. So we've tried to make it really accessible to the community in general. But for children, it would require them coming to the clinic at this point, unless we plan a party, right? No, a vaccine event or
Yeah,
something.
no, I will say that I've spoken to Dr. Jonathan Melk and to Dr. Darlene Melk, too, who are part of this group of people that get together every Wednesday and talk about these issues. And so if the need was there, they are very willing to coordinate like a community event, held on a Saturday. Obviously, with children getting vaccinated, their parents must authorize, especially if they're under 18. But they're very willing to work with us if the need is there to do
Good.
like a
Lorraine,
clinic.
I just wanted to ask the
Go ahead.
doctor. In your experience, do you think that the face shield is not good enough, not as good as the mask, or is it the same, or what's your opinion on the face shield?
So I try as little to rely on my opinion, honestly, when it comes to things like this. So actually, the recommendation based on, so the idea is it's the air that you're breathing, correct? And so a face shield doesn't essentially contain the air, and so it leaks around. It is okay for, not necessarily, for the wearer, they're protected somewhat, but the person wearing the face shield is exposing everyone else, essentially, because they're not containing their breath or their, through their nose or mouth. So that's the limitation. Often they recommend, like in a high-risk situation, both the face shield and the mask to protect you well for eyes and mouth.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're not concerned about liability given any medical advice here tonight, are you? No.
Should I be?
I would-
I'm like,
No, of course, I'm just
I know you.
kidding. Thank you very much.
He's an adult, he's not a pediatric patient.
yeah. Let's talk later.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You're very welcome.
All right, and then to fully cover the subject and to give the public every opportunity, if anybody wants to address the board again and wants to interact with any of the board members regarding anything that was said, you're welcome to do it. Anybody to address the board is welcome to come back up again. Dora? Because we want to fully cover it so that when we make our decision, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. Go ahead.
As you heard, that the CDC recommends mask worn while inside and not while outside. You see how illogical that is? Volleyball players are separated. There's social distancing. Football players fall on top of each other. But they're playing outside, so they don't need to wear a mask. But volleyball players are playing inside the gym, and there's social distancing between them, and you hardly never see one fall on top of the other. But the CDC recommends for them to wear a mask, and that's what the schools are doing. Everything's just illogical. It should be pro-choice.
Thank you. Anybody else? Melissa?
Good evening, Mr. Board President and members of the board. So I just want to speak to you, give my opinion about the mask mandate. I also feel it should be optional during this mandate as a building principal. More than anything, we give out masks daily. So obviously, just like Mr. Moen said, you have 50% of your parents that are going to send their kids with masks and other 50% that don't. So on a regular, I think for 1 month, just at DHS, we issued over 1,500 masks. So my concern is not having enough masks to go around. So if we make it optional, then we will have masks available for those that need them, and then obviously those that bring them will have them. We'll bring them regardless. But the masks, having masks available, I guess, is my concern. We don't have the masks available. Making it mandatory, we have a lot of families that do not send their child to school with a mask. So I just want to kind of bring that to your attention, that the availability of masks is a concern.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And,
Mrs. Rodriguez, if I may ask or comment. So a couple things. All schools were provided masks, and so because they're having to give them out, constantly, we are having to replace them more often than we weren't. We haven't done, I have a meeting on Thursday with the administrators, and I was going to ask that same question about how many masks are you on a daily basis giving out. But we are supplying, we are ordering, but they are coming, near, I don't want to say, completely out, but a shortage, and getting masks ordered, and the companies shipping and sending them, is also a factor. But we do provide, that's part of the PPE equipment. But if they're giving out as many as, 1,500
At the high school, we're
school.
out completely.
Complete.
We borrowed some from our partnering schools, but they're very limited in supply now as well. So I'm just worried we're not going to have some in time if this mandate goes through tonight. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good thing to know.
And
Thank you.
and with that, do we have any of the other principals that deal directly with the students that have any concerns regarding the mandate before we take our vote? Rhonda, do you want to come up? Because I think it'd be interesting for the board to know exactly if there are concerns at the building level.
At Ray Moraine, we as well are running into that problem as well. We were able to spare, we gave, what, 2 boxes maybe, Mel? We were able to lend her 2 boxes. We average weekly, giving out masks as well, 1 to 2 boxes a week. And once we're out, we're out. We tell our students that it's very important. We have students that are coming in even now, now that they know that masks are optional. We do have them coming in and saying, "Miss, I need a mask." They did donate some blue cloth masks, and we had those at the beginning, as well as white masks, but the disposable masks, we're running out as well. And I'm just concerned because if we continue with the mask mandate, I give it maybe about 2 weeks, maybe even 3 maybe, when we won't have any more to be able to provide to the students, be able to give them out to the students.
Thank you.
Can I have Mrs. Trevino come up? Yeah, Mrs. Trevino, can you come up and just give us an update on the latest order?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Yes, as far as the mask orders and PPE equipment, the order has been placed. Originally, we had that discussion about the 10,000 threshold, thank you. But that was already put to the side, and they have been ordered.
Any word on
The
potential-
expectation of delivery, I don't have that answer right now with me, but I know that they have been ordered.
Thank you.
I have,
Ms. Selchow.
okay. With looking at our administrators and our central administration, about how many classes have had to be closed because of students with cases? Where the students have been sent, the whole class
Put your mic.
has been sent home?
It's 2.
We've had 2 for the whole district.
Yes.
And what grade levels were those?
Kinder and preschool.
Okay.
And I want to add that those 2 were not due to an outbreak, but
Okay.
because there was either a staff or a child
Okay.
who had COVID. The recommendation coming from Health Department was because the kinder kids and preschool kids, there's really no way to contact trace. They play with each other, they're around each other, so those 2 classrooms went for remote learning just for that short period of time.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question on that. When you talk about 2 classes, now does that mean that somebody was sick or did somebody test positive?
So in one of the classrooms, it was that somebody tested positive, and in the other classroom, it was, in both classrooms, it was because somebody tested positive.
Did you ever follow up on those?
Yes.
Did they get sick?
No.
Any other questions, members of the board? Mr. Lindeman.
I have some information I wanted to share. There was a recent CDC study printed in the Star that showed that schools with no mask mandate are 3.5 times more likely to have a COVID-19 outbreak than schools without a mandate. And I'm afraid if we, or any school has an outbreak, then that shuts the school down, and of course we don't want that at all. Recently, Sierra Vista schools reinstated their mask mandate. And so finally, I believe that until we have more individuals vaccinated, the vaccinating palooza, including children under 12, universal masking will be a critical tool in limiting this virus spread. So, thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into, yes, go ahead.
Just for the record, I am not anti-mask, and then I heard the letter today from my wife, we're just advocate for the kids. We're for the choice of the parents. And one last thing I just wanted to ask. We can hold special sessions, emergency sessions right away. And if this is so important, we should have had that meeting a week ago, last Wednesday, and say, you know what, instead of giving the kids already 7 days, 5 days at school, where they enjoyed some of this freedom. The people that wanted to wear it did, and I think it's the majority of them, and the people that didn't want to wear it, not wear it. I'm for pro-choice, but if it's that urgent, we should have met last Wednesday. Thank you.
I agree with you. I think there was some mitigating circumstances as to why we didn't, and I think it was availability of staff and because of the activities last week. One last question I want to ask is regarding the comment made by Ms. Cortez regarding her daughter's rash. There are medical provisions, right? And there are exceptions, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you go over those so that, I don't know if they were employed with her situation or not, but just for the record, what are they?
Yes, under the COVID mitigation handbook, under the face coverings, there is, stipulations under that. If there is a, medical concern or medical exception, there are exceptions to the rule, such as, asthma is one. There are some kids that are asthmatic and they come in with a doctor notification that they need to not wear a mask. Respiratory issues. It could be an allergic reaction. And I know people have been getting, I know my son has extremely bad case of acne, for example, related to the wearing of mask all the time. So there are exceptions, and parents can go to the school, meet with either the administration or the school nurse and provide some documentation, and there could be a decision made on those exceptions.
Okay, good. Would you repeat the motion? Alma?
It was approve the reaffirmation of the DUSD 27 mask mandate as presented.
That was made by Mr. Lindemann, seconded by Mr. Ramos?
Second by Mr. Ramos.
Okay, so we have that motion on the floor. We don't want to, nobody else wants to address the board? Roll call.
Wait.
Dr. Gomez.
Yes. Because I'm a little bit confused here. The last time when we said we were going to have a mask mandate, that was when? Last month?
Yeah, it ended at September 28th.
Okay. Well, didn't we at one time had made the motion and approved it that it was also up to the parents?
It was optional for after, there was no mask mandate starting July of 2021. That's when we had that board meeting in July. And then things, changed, and I can't remember if it was I think it was August that we brought
August 18th.
brought back the mask mandate. But July through August, that's when there was no mask mandate.
Okay, and then for clarification, just because of that question, a yes vote would be reaffirming to reestablish the mask mandate. A no vote would be to leave it as it was prior, which would be optional. Is that the way you got the motion on? The motion is to reaffirm, correct?
Reaffirm.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Roll call.
Ms. Salcha.
Yes.
Mr. Dendeman.
Yes.
Dr. Gomez.
No.
Mr. Ramos.
No.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Motion carried 3-2.
Yes.
Action item 3, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
Mr. Bahrain, we skipped reports. Reports 2 and 4.
Reports.
Oh, I'm
You skipped
sorry.
reports.
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
Mr. Soto.
I'm sorry. We're on the consent agenda, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Approval of the following consent agenda. I got
No, sir.
confused because we jumped
We're-
to that item.
Letter F. We're on letter
We're on
F.
F. We're on F. F.
The high school did the report, but we haven't.
Preliminary.
Okay.
Go back, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, it's just my monthly budget balance report for the month of September. It's just like every month, we haven't had a lot of changes. So I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Members of the board, any questions regarding that?
No questions.
All right, let's get
I
to,
have one question, sorry, Mr.
no,
President.
go ahead.
Cesar, so we got the contract and the, everything done for the field? That's done? I mean, you know, they accepted the changes in the contract that the lawyers did for the field?
Yeah, as far as I know, everything is ready. Everything is in the escrow company. We're just waiting on the finalization of the project.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
All right, any further questions on that? All right, we're at 2, consent agenda,
No. It's Mrs. Cox with
HR, go ahead.
HR.
So, good evening. On September 17th, we had a job fair here at the district office, and we had quite a few people attend, apply, and then be interviewed on the spot for positions. Some are being presented tonight for approval. We will also be attending a job fair hosted by the city this Friday, October 8th, at the Visitor Center from 9 to 1. And we are currently recruiting for general ed IAs, ESS IAs, we need van drivers, interventionists, help desk technicians, and grounds positions. So we have quite a few vacancies. Our enrollment is at 3,917. It's holding pretty steady. We have some kids who are dropping, and then we have kids re-enrolling, or enrolling, so.
Okay, members of the board, any questions on that report? Okay, now we're at consent agenda. Approval of the following consent agenda items. A1, payroll expense vouchers. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
Ms. Selchow. Ms. Selchow, second.
Go ahead.
No, I seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes, item 3, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Mrs. Santiago.
As presented, I do have a change on the last name, my bullet point. We are removing that individual.
Okay, which way,
The last
do you want
bullet.
the last one?
Yes, Maria Grijalva is not being presented tonight, so remove her name.
Okay, and about 10 names down, and I think I asked this last time, and I think it's correct. Is that Zavala or Zavalsa?
Savalsa.
It is Zavalsa? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve with the recommended change.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Selchow. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes, item B, discussion action on the approval of classified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented. Instructional aides and some of the new positions that we were board approved last month, so as presented.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the classified hires.
By Mr. Lindman. Second by Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item C.
And Mr. Breen,
Yes.
if you, just before we move forward, I don't know if there's any new hires present? I don't think so. Okay.
Item C, discussion action on the approval of classified resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we have an employee resigning, well, that was immediately and one in December.
Motion to approve
Move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second
Second.
by Ms. Salchow. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item D, discussion action on approval of classified transfers. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and these are current employees that applied for a new position and increase in pay.
Motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
Second.
Mr. Ramos. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item E, discussion action on the approval of increase in hours. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, again, current employees, same position, but just increase in hours.
A motion on the floor
Move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second
Second. Oh, Tom.
No, go ahead, Jenna.
No, please.
By
Okay.
Dr. Gomez? was it?
Yes.
Discussion? I have a question. What was the reason for the increase? You know,
Denise, do you want to work on that?
It is ESS needs, students with special needs that they just need additional time.
One-on-one?
One-on-one. Mm-hmm.
okay, good. All right, roll call.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item F, discussion information only for classified internal transfer, Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and no vote needed on that. That's just so we have it on document that we transferred locations.
Item G, discussion action on the approval of donations received for Douglas Unified School District number 27, Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you have 4 different sets of donations going to different schools by different people.
I think it's interesting to note there that we have one from a former outstanding student, Caitlin Kramer, who not only was very successful in high school, but I understand she's doing very well now, and we congratulate her and thank her for that.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second,
Second.
by Ms. Salchow. Discussion?
second,
We are, Ms.
Yeah,
Salchow.
yes, second.
You're getting as bad as I am. Roll call.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes,
Mr. Berry?
Yes. Item H, discussion information only on food service operation. Ms. Samaniego, I think this was something that was asked for by a board member.
Yes, Mr. Ramos asked at the last board meeting if he could get a report on food service operations. So Mr. Fernando Pineda is here, our food service director.
Do you have anything specifically you want to ask him, Mr. Ron? Go ahead.
yes, Mr. Pineda, the reason, I asked for this report to be given in person by you is because I was contacted by parents that were complaining that their child were not receiving food because they had run out here at the high school. And so I requested for you to come here and give an explanation as to what's going on and what is being done about that.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, good evening, board members of the board, communities, DUSD staff, and yeah, I'm gladly to be here to answer that question and another question that Mr. Lindemann asked. And yeah, I think this question was more specifically towards high school, but I brought some information for the whole district, for high school, middle school, and elementary and ELC. So first of all, I want to talk about how our operations this year, how we're standing, and what are we doing. So for this currently school year, USDA had extended the summer school program. So what we're doing, we're adopting that summer school extension. Reason why we extended is because it allows you more options. Unfortunately, we mentioned it, someone mentioned earlier, we're still dealing with the pandemic. So USDA are seeing that that it's what is happening, and they're knowing that we're gonna face with pandemic throughout the whole year. So the reason why we selected continue with the summer school program is because it allows us to do the parent pickups that we were doing during previous months. Also the grab and goes like parent picking up the meals for the child, take it home. Also the bus routes that we were doing, and also like very higher reimbursable rates at a summer school program. So that's one of the reasons why we opted for the summer school program for the whole year. So they extended a few months at the beginning of the pandemic, and then they extended throughout the whole year, and now they decided to just adopt it throughout the school year 21-22. So that's what we're doing right now. On the positive end, I want to say that we ended up at the school year 21 with a positive balance of $2,000 and $2,360 out of the $140,000 that we were negative on the month of January. So that's something very good that happened to us. Of course, we had to manage many things, staffing, products, shortages, and all that, but we managed to have a positive balance at the end. Another positive note, we got contacted by ADE that we're going to get an additional funding through USD aid. This funding is called Emergency Operational Cost Reimbursement, and it's an average of $138,000 extra that we're going to get. Reason why we are getting this fund is because USDA is taking into consideration the lower counts of meals that we served during the beginning of the pandemic. So what they did is compare the numbers from March to June of 2019 to the March-June of 2020. So they subtracted and they utilized a factor, and they came out with this number. So every school district is getting different amounts. But just to give you a perspective, how we are right now and how we were in January of 2020. So we ended up with a positive balance, and on top of that, we have additional funds coming to us. We haven't seen it yet in our accounts, but it's coming to us. Something to remark is that this year we operated the full 12 months. We always do summer school for the month of June. This was the first year that we operated the month of July because of the pandemic and the flexibilities that we were allowed. So out of that month, we just received a claim this morning. We got a claim of $37,000. Not a lot, but it's going to definitely make an impact on our budget. And, well, it's something good. I mean, we were here for the parents, for the kids, and we're going to continue doing it because we have many flexibilities right now. Going back, I don't want to deviate the question to the question, so I'm going to go ahead and answer the question about running out of food. And I know it was more specifically towards high school, but I'll give you a few examples of what's happening in high school and what's happening at the other schools. So in front of you, I left a folder of production papers. So those production papers are the actual official paper that I collected from my lead cooks. 2 positions are essential for productivity, for production, for the whole district. So in those papers, you have evidence that maybe that question to you, it was a little bit, I won't say wrong, but I want to show you the evidence that we're not running out of food, that we have options, and it's for you to, we're not going to go over all the details, but it's for you to take it home, analyze it, and that's just like for a few weeks, for a few days, not even a week. So that's why I selected like several days. I didn't go with the whole month because it would have been like a bunch of papers. So on the paper, on the folder that you have there, you have a few days from September 20th to September 24th for high school. And you have elementary and middle school from September 22nd, 24th, 27th, 28th, and the 30th. So just select the random days for you to overview. And I just want to let you know that it's been challenging. Especially at high school, we have different methods of serving. We have 3 lunch carts outside. We have 1 inside cart. And sometimes, I'm not saying that it cannot happen, but sometimes we run out of the most likable food. And what we suggest to students is to go to the next cart. But sometimes they have limited amount of time. That will be the first attempt, right? And if they can't, we tell them to wait a little bit, and we contact the other carts and we get food to give them their choice. So that could be the issue for the Douglas High School. Not the only one. That's one of the things that it's happening. So if we go into the papers, I wanted to go into. So the first section will be for high school, and the second section will be for. The second pile will be for the middle school and then elementary. So let's just go to the day of September 20th, which is the first one, and this will be for the nachos. Something that we might, as an adult, we might think, okay, it's not a meal, right? But let me tell you, it is. I mean, it complies with the standards. It has a whole grain. It has cheese, which is a meat alternative. We also have beans, which could be a vegetable or a meat alternative. In addition of fruit, that is always available for students, milk, and that will be our 5 components. So it is a reimbursable meal, something that we say, okay, it's not popular in kids, but the number says different. If we go to that day and we focus on the middle corner over here, to the right corner, we see what it's been served and what it's been left over. So if you follow all these papers throughout the whole week, we've been seeing that we don't have we have leftovers. Yeah, it might be zero in some of the items, but it doesn't mean that we're running out of food. I mean, the way that we do our menus, we have 3 different choices: the middle school and high school. We have 1 main hot entry every day. We have a salad, a completed meal, packaged in 1. And we have a rotation of pizza and hot and spicy every other day, because that's, believe it or not, that's what the kids like. So we have it every other day. We have the salads every day, and we have 1 hot entry every day. Our menu, it's cycle in 3 weeks, which every 3 weeks a lot of the items repeats, but we try to put them as far as we can. So if we go back to the production papers, on that day, we have 10 leftovers, okay? Going back to another day of the high school, let's say cheese enchiladas, something that as an adult will say, okay, that's something that the kids will like, right? But let me tell you that that's not the case right now. The kids are, like that specific day, we run out of hot and spices. And we had 119 servings of cheese enchiladas leftover. So 119. So I mean, every day, if you go towards the paper, through the papers, and if you go through every single one, you can see like what every card is doing. So we have a production paper for every card. Sometimes you're gonna see a +1, +12. That means that they went ahead and asked another card for more meals, and they offer it on their card. So that's what they mean. Yeah, it is very confusing if you don't see this on a daily basis, but this is real evidence that I collected from my lead cooks that are like, majority of their time is making sure that the production is correct and we do not run out of food in the whole district. So I just give you the copies for a whole week. I just wanted to refer those 2 days for high school, but feel free to study them, take them home and analyze them. But yeah, that's just, I mean, it's a pattern. I mean, that day, nachos, we have 10 left over. It's minimum, but we still have leftover. Chicken tenders, 93 leftovers.
Yeah.
Corn dogs,
Mr. Pineda, excuse me a minute. That report is great, and we appreciate all the time you have taken to do that. And it's especially interesting for us to know what's happened since January, when you were in the red and all those. But I think the simple question that he was asking, and I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Clarification here, okay, I understand it's very different. But you as the director of the food department have to oversee and make sure that our students are not left without any food.
Of course.
Now, I understand the students, because I used to work at the food bank and I as a volunteer, and I could see all the food that was being sent over from the high school down over there for the students wouldn't eat, and it would be a lot of surplus. But as a director, I think you have to be more in-handed to what the students want to eat and make sure that they have the food every day. They shouldn't go not one single day hungry. That was my concern.
Yeah, and I think the evidence it was part to answer that question. I understand second lunch, at the end of second lunch, have the same benefits as the beginning of first lunch. So the same options should be available for all the students. So that's what I'm trying to go, that the food is available. Sometimes we send students to another card, and that could be the reason of, okay, we run out of food. I don't want to do that. I'm just saying that could be an option, but we also, part of our responsibility is to go ahead and give the food to the kids, right? So that's what we do. We communicate with each other, and we do that.
The question would be, on the first serving, do you always have enough food to serve all the kids in the district on the food? Because to me, running out of food implies that some kids aren't going to get a meal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what his concern was. And is that happening? It is on the first serving, when they go through the line, have any of the students been told we're out of food?
No.
Okay,
Never.
I think that was the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the way he conveyed it to me, and that's why we asked you to be here, the administration asked you to be here. So,
Mr.
very
President.
simply put, you're not running out of food. You are there, and you are supplying and feeding every child on the first serve, right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you. Simply, a concern that was brought up to me was an elementary parent. And it's simply saying that when you print the menu and the child packs their lunch, because, sometimes they don't want what's on the menu, so they pack a lunch. The days that they think that there's something they like, they don't pack a lunch, and then it's not available.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, if we can guard against that or make sure that those things don't happen sticking to the menu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to answer that question, what's going on at elementary, again, we're facing many challenges. One of them, it's food shortages. So it's a nationwide problem. We're dealing with that. Since the beginning of the school year, it happened like twice. I will say it, that we had to replace like an item completely. But for example, if a food truck arrives on Wednesday and we're serving nuggets on Friday, the other option that we look for options, and the option that we like to choose is to have something in the same family. Or like, for example, if we don't have chicken nuggets, replace it with chicken tenders, even maybe a chicken sandwich. So we try to stick with the same meal component, but it happened like twice where we have to, change a baked chicken for a pizza. But if we do that, we try to just replace it within the same week. I know that's a good example. One time we had to do that baked chicken with pizza because we didn't receive enough baked chicken to provide to all the students to make sure that the kids will have that choice available. So that's one of the examples. Containers, we're seeing a lot of shortages in containers. One time we had to change orange chicken with, I think, something else at high school because we didn't receive the containers. Even bottled waters, we're seeing a shortage in bottled waters, utensils, plastics, all that. So, because of that, we had to make modifications. But, we try to stick with the same component, and that would be an answer, I think, for the consistency of the menu.
And I can understand that there are circumstances where you're not going to be able to follow through the printed menu, but it's just kind of too bad that the student doesn't like, say, what they have, but they have tacos or something, and they like that, but they've made their lunch on the day that they don't see that something they like, and then you know the thing.
If I may add, and the food shortage is not because we don't have food or we don't order. It is one of our suppliers comes from Shamrock. And so Shamrock does not get a certain product. It's not available. It's just there is a food shortage, and we've I get that report. Other superintendents are seeing that too. So that's when they have to replace something when that food truck doesn't supply the expected order. So
Ms. Salcha.
I had a question about serving size at the middle school and serving sizes at the elementary. So, and then this comes back from being a teacher too, and not too long ago, and that some of my students would tell me that ate the third lunch, that they would run out of things, but yet the younger children, the sixth graders, they, because of the lunch schedule, there was only a certain amount, and they wiped it out. And then maybe seventh grade got some, and then eighth grade got none. And they did have to kind of eat something they didn't want to eat, or they chose to go without. But I did have a question about the, so do they all get the same serving size, or is the food divided into the 3 lunches?
Talking about grade levels, they all have the different requirements that we had to meet with
Right.
all different grain components, meal alternatives. So we had to have different portions for kids.
Based on nutrition.
Based on nutrition.
Nutrition guidelines.
Yes.
So like, but still my question
But-
is, especially at the middle school, is there just one big group? Because they're all about the same, they'll get the same nutrition.
Yes.
And
Same
they
size.
should be under the same guidelines right there nutritionally. So is that possibly why certain items go out quicker? Is that it's not divided into 3 groups?
Well, some.
Or is it? And
Yeah,
I'm-
no,
and
the
I'm
way that we
unaware.
categorize the meals, I mean, we have these components goes with these meals, but I mean, if the kid wants to put it apart, I mean, we have baked chicken with mashed potatoes, and they get a sandwich and they want mashed potato, they can get the mashed potato to complete the vegetable and the meal
I
with
think
the
the question,
sandwich.
Mr. Pineda, is do all, middle schools right now, I believe there's 2 lunches. At 3? Okay, so 3. So does first lunch, second lunch, and third lunch get the equal amount of food options?
Yeah, I mean that's going back to the question of high school. I mean, it's having all the options available through all the score, the lunches of the whole time. So I will say yes.
Mr. Pineda, do you have a system or a program that helps you see on a daily basis that you can go back and say, the previous month, such and such a day, we had an increase on this that was more popular? In other words, so you can see ahead what the kids want to eat and what you're running short on to prevent it. Is there something you have to look at that, or do you have to do it all by manual?
Not specifically a program. That's something that we're trying to move with. But I mean, I think the most important thing right now, and the way that we manage our production, it's by humans, like we're now focusing on a computer. So we have our lead cooks that receive these production papers every day. They make sure the numbers, they know when we're serving on a Monday a popular item, might not be a popular item for Wednesday that it's early release. So that might vary. So we do have records, but we don't have a program that helps us with this. But everything's done by persons right now.
And it's just an idea, maybe we can look into if there is a program out there for the food service that would help them, because a well-balanced program that's computerized will always be cost-effective. That's the number one. And the most important of all, kids won't be left out without a lunch.
And there's currently one program that we're particularly interested in, and I already talked to Mr. Soto, and we're working on seeing how can we make it work for the school district. But yeah, there's one in particular that we are focused on, and we're working on probably getting to that. That involves like a lot of time because our staff is used to doing this, a lot of training, but that's something that we're willing to take for the benefit of the school district. Absolutely, yes.
I have no other question. I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank you
Yes,
for giving
yes,
us
yes.
this report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you very much.
And before you go, thank you for all the time you spent on that for the board members, and especially the end of this discussion is, I think, got more specific as to what was being asked. Of the 5 people that you laid off, I believe it was,
5.
when was it, how long ago was
Oh, gosh.
it? It was in January last year?
Yeah, January, December.
Yes.
Anyway, were you able to manage without refilling those positions, or did you refill them? You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yes. We currently got 2 persons back out of the 5. We also reduced some hours. As we move along with the school year, we're adding more, like increasing hours because of the high needs. Fortunately, right now we're very short on staff because, as you notice on the agendas, I mean, we've been having a lot of late resignations, so we're dealing with that. So yeah, I will say that our our workload have increased since last year. So we've been increasing the hours slowly.
Okay, great, because I think that the board was concerned, one of the negative side issues of the pandemic was people losing their job. And that was significant. And so if the district was able to accommodate those people, not only in your rehiring or placement somewhere else, that would be great.
Yeah, and then they and right now facing with shortages, a lot of those people had the option to come back, and if they decided to do so, I mean, we got them back into the field.
Members of the board, any other questions for Mr. Pina? Thank you so much for being here, Fernando.
Thank you.
Oh no, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Item I, discussion information only on maintenance department process with handling of hazardous materials. And I think that was Dr. Gomez's request.
Yes, and I will defer to Mr. Soto. Mr. Pineda unfortunately is sick and was out. Quinones. What did I say? Mr. Pineda again. Mr. Quinones is out sick, so Mr. Soto, who oversees maintenance and operations. And the question, I believe, was on mold, hazardous material. What's the process? What does maintenance department do? So, Mr. Soto.
Okay, yeah, good evening, board members. Again, it's a touchy subject, especially when you're dealing with hazardous materials and stuff. But the process begins with when there's suspicion of mold, when there's a specific smell or they can see it on the walls, whatever. Maintenance department is contacted right away. The first steps, I know I have very detailed information from Mr. Quinones, but I'm just going to try to summarize everything. There's different things that the maintenance department does. And the first one is, of course, go and visualize and see that there's a problem. But then the district has kits, detection kits that we call, that we can just set it up and leave them for 24 hours and then come back and see the results. And if there's any indication of any hazardous material, then we look and in more detail of the area, and if needed, then we contacted an outside company, especially through the trust. We put a claim and say we have suspicion that there's something in this area. If it's not visual. If it's something that we can see and it's right there, then the maintenance department right away attacks it and does whatever needs to be done to remove it or replace walls or whatever it is. But if it's something is more in depth, then an outside company is contacted. Most recently, we have issues at Sar Marley with some suspicion of mold on the windows. A company was called. We did the study, and it was determined that there's the stuff in the windows. It was just because of the water was going into the panels of the windows, and it was just staying there. But again, there's something that we run into the trust, and like everything, when we have a claim, there's a $1,000 deductible. But then a local company was contacted to replace those windows, which I'm hoping that it's going to happen pretty soon. They already got paid and stuff. They just order the windows and the panels to be replaced. Again, the maintenance department has not only those Petri dishes, but there's some other detectors, environmental detectors that they have. Again, when there's suspicion of something in the air, and it's called moisture meter, and it's something as simple as you put it up there and it's green or yellow or red, and if it goes into the yellow, then there's something to keep looking into it in more detail. So that's basically what it is. Again, the maintenance department uses gloves and masks and everything just to avoid the risk of an infection from our employees and, of course, the employees on those buildings. Any specific questions you might have?
Dr. Gomez, does that adequately?
Yes. And this, I got into this and I didn't want to, but I did. So if, let's say a teacher, okay, or a teacher's aide suspects that there might be mold, she would contact Mr. Quinones?
The principal,
Or
principal
or the
first.
principal,
Correct.
and then
Or
they would
office.
come in and do whatever would need to be done.
Correct.
And the reason that I say I didn't want to get into it, because I was shown a picture of a dish, an agar dish, with a big clump of what looked to me to be mold. But the little microbiology that I have says, well, how did this agar get inoculated? So in other words, if the agar dish is left out there, it wouldn't be a clump. It would be little colonies, you know? And so then I thought, okay, if that's not the case, then maybe this dish was already, ¿cómo se dice la palabra?
Contaminated.
Contaminated, yes. You know? And so had a big discussion and everything like that. But so the point is that we do have that thing in place, that the teacher or the teacher's aide tells the principal, and then they go from there. That's fine.
Correct.
Yeah, the report goes to, they usually, principals are not readily available all the time, but they do contact either the front office staff, and so a work order gets submitted. And I will say that sometimes multiple work orders take place for that one issue. And what I really wanted Mr. Soto to talk about is the process, and maybe that process is going to take time. And so first initial response will be going in and utilizing the kit, testing it out. Another initial response with maybe another work order, or will be cleaning of the area, which typically happens, and I believe it's using Clorox and, Clorox and wiping areas down. Then that happens as a second step. Mold may come back under that same area. And so, that same process. And so sometimes, the concern is, well, you've cleaned it 3, 4, 5 times, but it keeps coming back. So there is a deeper issue than just cleaning it. And that's where some of the areas that we have dealt with, or that I have been made aware of, they've had to repair. After cleaning it multiple times, then you have to take down a wall and repair it, because it's not, cleaning it is not helping it. So that's more or less what happens. And there is, a process, and sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, but we're trying to get better at it.
And the most important thing is to actually find the source of,
Yes,
because if there's
absolutely.
mold, there's humidity, there's water somewhere. And that's,
And it can be so big that where the EPA has to come in.
Correct.
The environmental control. And so that has to be done by a contractor and everything like that.
correct. And that's
Obviously,
why we
you know
contact the
that.
trust, and they send the companies to actually look deeper into those issues.
Yeah, Mr. Soto, just to be sure, you did say that our employees, when they do repairs there, you give them the proper clothing,
Yes,
mask and
they have
everything.
masks, they have gloves, yes, correct.
For the face and everything, but especially if they have to do a minor repair, tear down something, I just want to be sure that they're
Yes.
properly dressed for that.
Yeah, and the most current event that I can talk about is we decided to do it on a weekend. That way, where there's no students, there's no staff around. It's just the maintenance people tearing out the wall, replacing it, finding the source of the problem. And also, what I want to say too is that in lieu and having all of these old facilities that our district have, we don't have that many issues. But I mean, and I'm not, I don't want to jinx myself, but I mean, yeah, it's something that we take seriously, and we always try to not just fix it, but actually find the source and also fix that, so we don't have just replace a wall and then a month later it comes again. So
Yeah.
then we're gonna have to replace it again. So.
Thank you. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was for information purposes only. And we'll go to item J, discussion action on the approval of the following job description, help desk technician, Ms. Samaniego.
I'm going to let Mrs. Cox present this. She worked on the job description, I believe, with Mr. Marco Durazo.
Yes, so this is a help desk technician. It's for the IT department, and they would be helping with calls if parents had calls pertaining to technology, things like that. They would be placed at schools and helping out with whatever questions parents have. It is funded under ESSER, so it is a temporary position.
Is that a new position that he's going to fill from within? Does he already have somebody there doing that?
No.
Or is that going to be a new position?
It's a new position.
And the funding?
ESSER.
ESSER.
ESSER 3.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve.
Let's get, motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the job description.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Okay, Mr.
And it was funded from what,
ESSER. ESSER, the federal
Okay.
monies, yeah. And that's why it's temporary. Once those monies go away, the position goes away.
Any discussion by the board? Any questions? And is that being posted? Will that be
Well-
posted now?
After you approve.
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes. Item K, discussion action on approval of the governing board self-evaluation. Members of the board, you all got copies. I think it was a compilation that was done by Alma. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the board self-evaluation.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Any discussion?
I have a question I wanted to bring up. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to vote no. Yes, whatever. I was getting ready to vote.
I had a concern that I put on the evaluation that I didn't really see in the compilation. My concern was that I'm understanding that sometimes our equipment is breaking, like mitigation equipment and things like that, and it's not being replaced or repaired in a timely fashion. And I'm talking about the COVID, misters and things like that. So that was my concern, and I wrote that down. I don't think that Ms.
It's
Rollins
under
read
A.
it. Is what?
It's under letter A, under G.
Okay, well then I missed it, but thank you. But I would bring that up, and I wanted to know if that's happening and what are we doing about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, members of the board? Dr. Gomez, you ready to vote?
I'm ready.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item L, discussion action on voting, giving direction on voting on one bylaw change proposal from the Arizona School Boards Association. Ms. Samaniego, if you want Mr. Lindemann to.
Sure.
Mr. Lindemann, will you take?
Yeah, thank you. That's the ASBA wanted to present to us adding a seat on the ASBA committee that is specifically for Native American and Hispanic or Black caucus members. And currently, they have shared seats. So they have one seat that shares every other year. And so the SBA thought that it would be better to have an extra seat specifically for those entities, and then they could serve all the time. So that's what this is.
Great. So you need an approval to do that, right?
Yep.
All right, you'll make that motion.
I move that we give Mr. Lindemann the approval to vote on this change in the governing board, ASBA governing board seats. And I think one is for Hispanic and one is for Native American, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any further discussion? And we always appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item M, discussion action on the approval of addendum number 5 of Futures Education of Arizona Service Agreement for ESS Department. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and so all of our school psychologists are paid through Futures, and this would add some additional work time for the two school psychologists.
All right, entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindemann. Is there a second? By
Second.
Ms. Salchow. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item N, Discussion action on the approval of fiscal year 2020-21 Douglas Unified School District number 27 annual financial report. Mr. Soto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, it's that time of the year, and I'm presenting the annual financial report for the school year 2021. It's the summary of all of the funds that the district has, all of the expenditures. I don't know if you have a specific question. I can just say that it was a very difficult year for everybody. And as you know, we went through a lot of issues, like cutting people, which is always not a good thing. But also, I just want to say that because of that rough year, and I just want to thank everybody involved, all the principals and all of my business personnel about this year. That it was hard. We're hoping that this year is a little different. We're hoping that there's not going to be any shutdowns and stuff, that the funding is going to be the way it should be and not being cut. So any specific questions you may have?
Well, let's get a motion on the floor to approve it first.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Does that, the idea or the notion that that school districts were going to be rewarded for all of the different particulars that were enumerated by the governor's office, that's non-existent again, right?
Correct. Well, not right now. Again, there's always that. If the district decided to go online and all those things, then we would have been cut again 5% for this year funding. But at this point.
Well, we have our distance learning plan, so we got to
Correct.
remember that, our remote distance learning
Yes.
plan that was approved. And so under that guideline, it is all based on a per school remote learning percentage that may be affected for a 5% reduction by school if more than 50% of their instructional time is spent online. But our schools and our secretaries, our principals are working diligently to report that data and make sure we keep tabs on that. So that's the only piece of our remote learning plan that maybe, Sarah Marley or maybe Stevenson would be affected if only if they went above that 50%.
The 50%.
Instructional time.
Okay, and that.
But everything else.
And
I
that's
think-
the only consideration regarding some extraneous force that
Yes.
would come in.
Correct.
Except for the legislature, and you never know what.
What?
As a matter of fact, the mask mandate, and I'm sure the board knows, was not ruled unconstitutional by the court. It was ruled the procedure because it was hidden in those bills, and it wasn't the mask. So we'll probably be seeing that again, too. Mr. Lindman?
I read last that they were going to apply to the Supreme Court.
Right. So, we should have mentioned that during the mask discussion, but it had nothing actually to do with the wearing of the mask. It was just the procedure that was used by the legislature when they passed the bill. So, okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions of Mr. Soto regarding the financial report?
Any specific questions to the report? Very detailed by Sonia. Sonia, thank you like always. But I just get to revise.
I noticed she's
Yes, I will say it was
That's the
the fact that we've received additional funding, through ESSER is a great benefit to the district and to the kids of Douglas, of DUSD. But if grants, anytime you get a grant comes with additional responsibility. And so when you take ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3, and you add up the number amount, the dollar amount in all those three grants, it's millions of dollars. And millions of dollars means a lot of work. And so while we dance around, the fact that we have millions of dollars to spend, and we have to carefully plan how we're going to spend those monies, it brings added work to the few staff that we have, working with, business office, working in curriculum office, with our school secretaries that are pushing these orders through, our principals that are approving. And so the grants come with a timeline. And so I will say, I want to special thanks to Sonia because she was under a lot of stress to get this financial report done. It has to be submitted by the 15th, and so we were on a timeline crunch. It is not easy to do the accounting for the whole district and making sure that everything adds up, to the T. So thank you, Sonia, and thank you for your business office and everybody that really does their job from the school level, department level to business office, and sometimes things are not easy, they're not perfect, but all this extra money comes in with a lot of extra work with the same number of staff that we have.
Is the grant money also in good shape?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right.
Katie was involved, right, Katie?
Yes. Katie doesn't want to do grants ever again.
You know what,
She
Katie's worn more different hats in this district than anybody I've ever known.
Yeah.
And does it well, too. I don't mean to be facetious. She does it well. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. We've already addressed O, and so now we're going to go to the temporarily suspending policy BGB under item P, requiring 2 readings of the proposed policies prior to approval of the adoption in order to approve the following policy advisories immediately upon the first reading. So the motion should include all except 712, because we've already done that, so I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I move to approve advisory numbers 713, 714, and 715.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Dr. Gomez. Any discussion? Anything you want to add to any of those, point out, any of the advisories? There's that one again about the critical theory.
Yes,
is in
and
there
so
again.
that has been eliminated from the policy that was presented last month. But other than that, no.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Announcements for future agenda items, members of the board? And, oh, by the way, in an informal discussion, and just because of everything that's going around, I think on the football field, that because of the condition of the field and the revamping that they're going to have to do, and then we're looking at the placement of the name on the field, and all of those things have to come together, that I think that, Melissa, if you discuss it with Angel and the administration's okay with it, that we postpone any ceremony until next year. We've already done the name. That way it gives you plenty of time, because there's a little uncertainty too with the field, not only the name on the field, but also with the field itself. So anyway, we'll do something next year with that, and you work with the administration on. Thank you. Any future agenda items, members of the board?
Go to announcements.
Announcements, Ms.
Okay.
Hamay.
So end of quarter is this Friday, and we have early release on October the 8th, Columbus Day, October 11th. All districts' offices and schools will be closed. Fall break is the 12th through the 15th. Second quarter begins October 18th, and next regular board meeting November 2nd.
Ms. Amanigo? I thought I heard Ms. Barrio say homecoming was the week after that?
The 22nd, right?
22nd, okay.
18th,
Okay, thank you.
And just while the whole board's here, without getting into any detail, when is the board going to discuss and address the ACR? I mean, that is taking forever.
The attorney is still working on reviewing it, Mr. Bering.
The sooner the better,
Later.
and you know why.
We submitted
So,
everything to him. And
have you been in contact with him?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and
So
he's
still
working
pending,
on it?
yes, and still pending.
All right. Item 7, no, excuse me, 5. The governing board may vote to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, subsection A, number 1, for the following personnel matter. Consideration of a 2021-22 certified teacher to be released from his contract. Entertain a motion to do that.
I move to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mrs. Salcho. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Boreen?
Yes. We'll go into executive session. You want to take a break, members of the
Yes,
board?
just
Let's
a-
take
No, that's what's so amazing, you know, and then he's back to work.
Ed, where did Michelle's daughter get married?
In her hometown?
Okay, we're ready.
The 16th of 17th of,
Open session, and it's item 6, discussion action on the request of the release of the fiscal year 2021-22 contract submitted by Mr. John Netches, certified teacher at Paul Huber Middle School, and I'll entertain a motion to do that with deep regrets. Ms. Samaniego, would you read your recommendation so that we can adopt that as the motion?
Yes, my recommendation would be to release Mr. Netches of his 21-22 school year contract, no liquidated damages, rehireable, and also waiving policy GCQE, which is a retirement policy.
I move to approve the student's, superintendent's recommendation.
Second?
Second.
By Ms. Selchow. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Item 7, the governing board may vote to go into executive session to consider a student's appeal to the recommendation of the hearing officer concerning the long-term suspension of student A pursuant to ARS 15-843A. The board can discuss and vote on the recommendation of the hearing officer in executive session. So I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I move to enter into executive session.
Second.
Second by Ms. Selchow. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes, and for the record, the reason we have to do it different, it's under 2 different provisions of the statute. So we're back in executive session.
And staff,
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman,
Second.
by Mrs. Salcha. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.